Millions of years ago, two volcanoes in the middle of Turkey erupted over the surrounding countryside and left behind them a geologist's dream. Lava and ash cooled over an area of more than 1,000 square miles, and now, in the region of Cappadocia in Turkey, soft volcanic rock has been eroded into extraordinary landscapes. Most of these rocks are composed of a mineral called zeolite. It's so soft that it's been hollowed out into caves which once housed a vast community of early Christian refugees.
25 lira.
Pardon?
25 lira.
25 lira.
Today, these zeolite homes attract thousands of tourists from all over Europe. But what many visitors don't realize is that the environment they've come to admire may be poisoning the people who live in Cappadocia all the year round and even causing incurable cancer.
Burada gravitasyon var.
This man only has 6 months to live. He's Mustafa Cetinkaya, a village school teacher from Cappadocia. Last year, he had severe pains in his chest, found breathing difficult, and was brought here to the main university hospital in Ankara. Professor İzettin Barış, the principal chest specialist in Turkey, diagnosed that he was suffering from an incurable form of lung cancer called mesothelioma. Normally, this rare disease only kills 1 person in every million. In the last 2 years, however, in this man's home village alone, no fewer than 27 people have died from the same form of lung cancer. All that the doctors can do for him now is to prescribe increasingly powerful pain-killing drugs. Professor Barış and his team have been studying lung cancer among Turkish villagers for more than 10 years. At first, it was thought that the main cause of death was dust from natural asbestos. Many people in rural Turkey use asbestos as a whitewash or roof insulation, not realizing that breathing its microscopic particles can be fatal. But then, Professor Barış discovered that there were large numbers of cancer deaths in Cappadocia, where asbestos is unknown. One village was particularly affected, Kerayin. Kerayin is a small farming village about 150 miles from the Turkish capital. At one time, there were about 800 people living here. In the last 5 years, however, there have been 48 deaths from lung cancer, 38 of them from the same kind of rare disease which was formerly attributed only to asbestos. Today, cancer deaths from mesothelioma are continuing in this village at the same rate.
Şöyle kırmızı ilaç var, bitti.
Pahalı bir ilaç.
Pahalı.
İdrarını boyuyor.
Zera Yigit, the wife of a farmer, is one of 5 people who now know that they've not much longer to live. A doctor from another village has wrongly diagnosed TB and given her medicines, but she knows that she has incurable cancer.
Ne gibi bir hastalığım var? She says that you know my disease. I'm sure she knows his disease, but she wants to keep herself strong, you see. She knows this disease.
And other people in her family have also died as a result of it?
Yes, yes. She has seen many cases here with same kind of problem. Right. First of all, pain. Later on, the weakness. Couldn't work in the fields, in the house. Later on, fix it in the bed, and severe pain, shortness of breath, and the end.
Until comparatively recently, the death rate from cancer in this village and in several others nearby was not thought particularly remarkable. Inadequate medical facilities in rural Turkey and a shorter life expectancy anyway disguise the nature of the disease. Even today, there are people who find it difficult to accept what's been happening. Ibrahim Gurbuts, for instance, has lost 6 relatives in 3 generations, all from lung cancer. And although he now lives 200 miles from Cappadocia, is happy to come back to Karayin for his holidays.
Öyle bir şey olduğuna inanmıyorum çünkü bir psikolojikmen bizim köyde
They say that in psychologically he prepared himself that cancer will not catch him.
Ama evimde de mikrobunun bulunduğuna inanıyor mesela.
But he knows that the rock sample taken from his house has many fibers which cause cancer. Zeolite is a volcanic material. And,
that's the rock from which most of these houses are
yes,
made?
Yes, for example, this may have a zeolite. The most dangerous kind of zeolite is fibrous zeolite. And we studied here to find the zeolite fibers, especially in this street, in the back street, we have found many zeolite fibers in the air.
Now, why should houses made of this particular building material be dangerous for people?
They don't know. This is a very old village, made more than 400 years ago, and nobody knows that this material contains zeolite.
People living in these houses are breathing air which is filled with a kind of dust.
Yes, yes.
Caused from these blocks?
From the rocks.
In the last 7 years, the people of Karayin have had to grow accustomed to the fact that they've all become the object of medical research. Teams of doctors from abroad and even from the World Health Organization have come here, and their findings have confirmed that the risk of exposure to zeolite is greatest among the children in the village.
I feel very sorry when I saw small children in the streets playing in the dangerous areas, and they are all victims for cancer in the future. If we evacuate the village, if they move in new places, the most important thing is we will save the young children in this village.
Ironically, the volcanic soil on which Karayin is built is so fertile that the farming families who live here are among the richest in the whole of Cappadocia. They grow rice, potatoes and onions in all the surrounding fields and have therefore found it difficult to accept that the source of their wealth could also be a curse. But now, at last, there are signs of a change. Many of the younger families have left to work abroad in Germany or Sweden, and the new houses which they're having built for their return are made from brick and cement and not from zeolite. A nearby zeolite quarry has been closed down. Last year, the village council in Karayin was told that the Turkish government had declared their village a disaster area. But the offer that they could all be evacuated and rehoused was complicated by questions of compensation. And so far, nothing has been agreed. But if people stay in this village, is there not a risk that they, particularly the younger people, will eventually have cancer?
Nearly 40% of the younger population now want to leave the village. But the older people are trying to stop them because we don't want to step into the unknown. The houses and fields that we would be given if we moved into a new village might not be adequate, and we may have difficulties in adapting to this new region.
Professor Barış claims that the zeolite dust of Cappadocia is just as dangerous as the more widely known asbestos, and perhaps even more so. But he also claims that the medical discovery he's made here in rural Turkey could have wider implications. Zeolite, the mineral on which this landscape is based, also occurs in many other, less spectacular parts of the world. In various forms, it's mined in the United States, in Italy, in Yugoslavia, Mexico, Bulgaria, Hungary, and Japan. It's used in a wide variety of industries, from papermaking to cement and animal foods. So to what extent are the workers in those various industries you mentioned in other countries at risk from the same kind of cancer?
In our study, we understood that when people exposed to zeolite, 30 or 40 years later, disease develops. And the zeolite industry is new. We may see victims from zeolite industry 30 or 40 years ago, 30 or 40 years later. This is the importance of our study in the world.
So you're saying that some people who work in these industries in other countries could contract cancer?
Yes, and control measures should be taken.
Well, after we made that film, we talked to the Medical Research Council scientists in Britain who've been working with Professor Barış throughout. The pneumoconiosis unit in South Wales confirmed that Professor Barış has indeed stumbled across a medical problem which does have international implications. They say that they've suspected for some time that zeolite could be dangerous, but until the results from Turkey didn't know for certain that humans could be at risk. Well, since our report, they've had many inquiries from firms in Britain who use zeolite. They say that only certain fibrous types of the mineral are dangerous if they get into the air, and that monitoring experiments have been started in cases where there's any doubt. Because of Professor Barış's work, they say, the dangers of fibrous zeolite are now being appreciated all over the world. So in Japan, America and Europe, lives may well have been saved by the tragedy of a few Turkish villages.